Well, good evening, friends, and welcome back to our Final Events of Bible Prophecy seminar. Our topic tonight is called The Great Controversy. In our previous 3 lectures, we've been studying about more of a broad picture of the final events of Bible prophecy. We've talked about the signs of the times, the second coming of Jesus Christ, and how he will return to this earth, and what will take place when he does. But tonight we want to begin to look at more of the finer details of what the final events of Bible prophecy will be all about. We're going to be looking at some very interesting topics over the next few nights. In fact, our next 5 lectures, they all go together to give us a big picture of what the final events of Bible prophecy really are telling us. Tonight we have the Great Controversy. Tomorrow we have the Antichrist, part 1, part 2. Then we have the Seal of God. Then we have 666 and the Mark of the Beast. Then we have the USA and the New World Order. These lectures will give you and I a big picture of what's taking place in our world today, how it will affect us, and what the final details of the final events of Bible prophecy will be all about. But tonight we are talking about the Great Controversy. You know, there was a man in the United States of America. He had an accident with some high-power electrical lines, and he asked his insurance company to pay him compensation for the accident that he sustained when he was shocked by those power lines. The insurance company refused to do so. They refused to do so because on the grounds of this accident was in legal terms an act of God, they said, we are not paying for the accident. Well, this particular man thought, well, if this accident was an act of God and the insurance company won't pay for the accident, someone's going to have to pay. And if it's an act of God, if God's responsible, God's going to pay. So he decided to take 55 of the Christian churches in the city which he lived to court to get the compensation he required. The churches went to court, the case went on, and during the trial, one of the Christian ministers from the church, one of the local churches, said, I don't believe the expression an act of God is right. It's being wrongly used. I believe that it should be called an act of the devil. It wasn't an act of God, it was an act of the devil. You know, friends, as we look at our world today, we see lots of sorrow, suffering, sadness and tragedies. Who is responsible for the suffering in our world today? As you look around our world, it doesn't take you long to become very aware that there is an evil power at work on planet Earth. Everywhere we look, we see evidences of terrible tragedies, evidences of suffering, evidences of sadness and death. Who is responsible? Many blame God. Many say, well, if there's a God in the heaven, if he is loving and kind and good, why are we having so many difficulties, so much suffering, so much pain on planet Earth? And that's a fair enough statement. Often we hear the question asked, why did God allow this to happen to me? Why is there so much suffering? Why doesn't God do something? Is it an act of God, or is it really an act of the devil? To understand this question, we must go right back to heaven itself and find out what is happening in our world, why it is the way it is, and what was the foundation of the troubles we face day by day. We are going to find that the Bible tells us that the woes and the sufferings of this earth actually began way back there in heaven. Notice the Bible in Revelation chapter 12, verse 7 and 8, what it says. Revelation chapter 12, verse 7 and 8, it says, and there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. Here we see an amazing statement in the Bible, almost a bit of an oxymoron. It says, there was war in heaven. And when you think of heaven, you don't think of war, you think of peace, happiness and joy. But the Bible tells us that heaven's a real place with real beings. And the Bible tells us that at some stage in past history, there was actually war in heaven. The dragon and his angels fought against God. Now the question we have to ask ourselves is this. To start with, who is the dragon? Let's try now to identify some of these characters in this verse. Who is the dragon that was warring in heaven? Well, the Bible's very clear in verse 9. Revelation 12, verse 9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan. So here we find the Bible very, very clearly says that the war in heaven with the dragon fighting, that the dragon is who? It's the devil, or Satan, as he is known in our world today. The dragon is Satan or the devil, and this whole controversy started way back there in heaven with a rebellion against the government of God led by one whom we call the devil or Satan. Back in heaven, before Lucifer fell, or before the devil fell, his name was Lucifer. But this began way back there in heaven, where Satan himself began to war against the government of God. But we ask ourselves the question, how could there be a devil in heaven? Did God create an evil angel? Did God create the devil? No, friends, God didn't create the devil. God created a perfect angel. It's just that this perfect angel made a devil of himself. The Bible tells us that Satan was made. He was created as the highest, or one of the highest angels in heaven. He was called the covering cherub. But it tells us that this perfect angel made a devil out of himself. Isaiah describes, in Isaiah chapter 14, what actually took place in heaven. Notice how Lucifer or Satan fell. Isaiah 14 verse 12 to 14, the Bible says, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer?" In other words, what are the issues? How did you fall? Why are you cast out of heaven? How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? And it gives us the answer. It says, "For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High." Here we find Satan himself exalting himself to be like God. I will be like the Most High. I will exalt my throne above the stars of heaven. In other words, Satan had an I problem. I was the problem in Satan's life, in Lucifer's life. He wanted to be God himself. He wanted to be on the throne of God. In other words, he tried to overthrow the government of God. He tried to overthrow the laws of God, the establishment of God, the throne of God. He attempted a coup against the God of heaven. He decided that the laws and the government of God, he could run better himself. And he decided to break the law of God and to follow his own way and his own will. Ezekiel 28 verse 14 and 15 tells us, "Thou art the anointed cherub that covereth, and I have set thee so. Thou wast upon the holy mountain of God. Thou wast perfect in thy ways from the day that thou wast created, till iniquity," or lawlessness we could say, "was found in thee." That word iniquity simply means lawlessness. The Bible tells us here about Lucifer, he was a perfect angel. He was a glorious being. He was perfect in all his ways until he became lawless. He rebelled against the law of God. He rebelled against the government of God. He broke God's laws. He decided we don't need laws. We're holy beings. We're holy angels. We don't need laws to govern us. And the Bible says he was perfect in all his ways until iniquity or sin or law breaking was found in Lucifer. Lucifer began to question the fairness of God. He began to talk to the other angels and spread rumors and put doubts and questions into their minds. "Why do we have laws?" Lucifer said. "We're holy beings. We can govern ourselves. God's just being unfair. God isn't allowing us to grow to our full potential." And as a result of this questioning and doubting God and his word and his law and his government, heaven was divided into two camps. It was the angels with God who were faithful to the government and the laws of heaven. And there were those angels who decided to go with Lucifer and rebel against the government of God and have their own laws, their own rules, and their own regulations. And this divided heaven. And this is why we find in the book of Psalms, Psalms 103 verse 20, the Bible says this, "Bless the Lord, ye his angels that excel in strength, that do his commandments." The dividing line between the angels of Satan and the angels of God is that the angels of God do his commandments. They are obedient to the law of God and the laws of heaven. Heaven was divided into two camps. Satan attacked the law of God. He attacked the government of God. He wanted his own throne to be set up, his own laws, his own government. And as a result of this, the Bible tells us that Satan was cast out of heaven. Notice Revelation 12 verse 9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels